Ask a college student what keeps them up at night. It's either deadlines or their GPA, or extracurricular activities, but you get the idea. For students of one professor, the latter, well, not the other idea, but the GPA, the grades, the latter isn't something they have to worry about anymore. Here to tell us about how she ungrades her students is our next guest. Elisabeth Gruner is an English professor at the University of Richmond in Virginia. Elisabeth, welcome to the show.
Hi, it's nice to be here.
When I was in university, grades were so important. All the focus was on the GPA and what the mark was. Did you get an A, or if it was numerical, did you get a 90 or a 95? And you're telling me you've thrown that out the window? Tell me more.
Well, it's not entirely out the window, I have to say. So my students do still get grades at the end of the semester, but they do not get grades on each individual piece of work they do throughout the semester. So I practice something that's called ungrading. It's pretty well established, actually, in the pedagogical field. There are a lot of other people who do it as well. And what students get is feedback on their work throughout the semester. They get pretty detailed feedback on everything they do. They get the opportunity to revise, to make it better. And at the end of the semester, they turn in a portfolio of revised work, along with a reflection on that work and a self-assessment where they tell me how they thought they did on it, what their how well they did in achieving their goals for the course. And I assess that portfolio and I look at their self-assessment, and together we arrive at a final grade for the course.
Elisabeth, I taught at university here in Montreal in journalism department. I remember before I taught my first semester that I was about to teach a course, I was speaking to some colleagues, and they're like, grading, Elias, that's what's going to kill you. Don't give too many assignments. Don't over-assign because you have to grade all that stuff. Be careful, right? I didn't learn my lesson. That first semester, too many assignments, too much grading. So did any of this come out of maybe frustration at just how time-consuming, quote-unquote, grading is?
Well, to some extent, yes. Now, I'll say I'm not sure that this saves me a whole lot of time because I still read everything. I still assign a lot of work. I still read everything they write, and sometimes I read it twice or even 3 or 4 times if they want to continue revising it. What I don't do is agonize over what mark to put on it. So, and I don't write comments that have to justify a grade. I write comments that say, hey, this is working, but have you thought about this? I think you're doing really well here. You could do more of that. I write the kind of comments that maybe an editor writes. I write the kind of comments that actually help them improve their work. Comments that I was writing before, but that got ignored because they went straight to the grade.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and let me tell you something. You're speaking to me here because I remember how agonizing it was. Like, oh, is this an 80? Is this an 85? Oh, what did someone else get? And you're just trying to justify that all in your brain. I guess I got to ask you, what's the feedback to that? Are there some students that are like, hey, wait a minute, I want a number, it makes me feel good. What's the feedback you've gotten on this?
Well, so I do get some of that, and as in the piece that I wrote about this, I talked about how, especially the very first time I did this, I laid out this plan to my students. I said, here's what I'm going to do. And they spent a good part of that class period just peppering me with questions. They're like, okay, so, but really? You're going to have a secret grade book, right, where you write our grades down, and if we come to you, will you tell us? And I said, no, actually, I'm not. Well, but if we ask you, no, because I'm not going to have grades because I'm going to wait until you've revised your work at the end and graded at the end of the semester. Well, what if we tell you that, we're done revising? Will you grade it then? Well, no, because I'm going to grade the whole portfolio. Well, but I want to know where I stand. Well, so I'll give you feedback, and you'll be able to look at that feedback, and you can always come and talk to me in my office, and we'll talk about what could be better, and we'll talk about how you're doing in terms of what the course goals are. And you get to say at the end of the semester how you think you've done. And that is profoundly disorienting for students. I get it. I mean, I spent, as long as anybody else did, being graded. It's weird. But once they start experiencing it, they understand that it's freed them to focus on what they're learning. And that same semester, one of the students who was one of the loudest sort of questioners at the beginning of the semester, at the end of the semester, he wrote me this note. It was separate from his sort of course evaluation. He wrote me a note and he said, I really want to thank you for what you did. I realized that you were treating us like adults. And I also realized as a senior in college, no one's ever treated me this way before.
Wow.
And I was both grateful and it kind of broke my heart. Kid's 22 years old. People should be, they're going to be, out in the world, and you get evaluated in the world. You get performance reviews, and those are meant to improve, to help you improve. So I am trying to help them get ready for, what's coming.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to help them learn.
And it's so true, right? The type of feedback, like every week, here's your grade. Now you're a 90. Now you're an 87. Now that doesn't exist in the real world. We are with Elisabeth Gruner, an English professor at the University of Richmond in Virginia, publishing a piece on The Conversation, the website The Conversation, called "I No Longer Grade My Students' Work, and I Wish I Had Stopped Sooner." Now, publishing this piece, telling me what you've told me this morning, Elisabeth, are you hearing from your colleagues that are saying, okay, I'm in, tell me more, I want to do this as well?
I am. I'm hearing, a range. I'm hearing that from a number of people. I'm hearing also from a lot of people who are already doing it, who are offering, their feedback on how it's going for them. I'm hearing from people who are saying, well, that's great for you, but I can't do it in my course. And there are reasons that people can't do it. There are university systems where, for example, it's required to provide an interim grade at, early in the semester to give students the opportunity to drop the course if they're not doing well. And, in a system like that, you can't fully ungrade. It's still possible, and what a lot of people who practice different forms of alternative assessments do is, even if you can't fully ungrade, you can really reduce the impact of grades in courses by having more low-stakes assignments, papers that aren't graded, papers that are given just feedback, even if there have to be some things that are graded, because of the demands of the institution, or because of the demands of, the department or the system that you're operating in. So there's still ways, I think, to reduce the effects, and they are, I think they are pernicious. We do see a lot of great anxiety among students, and anything we can do to reduce that, I think, is a good thing.
Elisabeth, to wrap up here, I just want to know how's the administration of the university treating you? Any calls into the office on that end? Administration, are they supportive?
They're very supportive, actually. Again, I give grades at the end of the semester, and I might prefer not to do that either. And there are certainly, there are medical schools that are graded pass-fail throughout, and we have excellent doctors who never get grades. So it's not like there aren't systems that work entirely ungraded. But I'm complying with the demands of the system. My students are learning. They do well in their other courses, and as long as that works, the administration is fine with it.
Real pleasure talking to you. I hope you have a great day, and thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I've enjoyed the conversation.
Elisabeth Gruner, English professor at the University of Richmond, that's in Virginia, and her piece on the website The Conversation called I No Longer Grade My Students' Work, and I Wish I Had Stopped Sooner.